All right, welcome back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com NHL DFS strategy show, and we've got yet another four-game slate. And this looks like it's going to be a pretty good one. Couple elimination games, couple closely contested series. So this one should be fun to talk about. Joined by Slim Cliffy. You guys know the deal. How's it going, Cliffy?
It's going good. I mean, it's funny. You look at this slate. If yeah, a week ago I wouldn't have been excited about it, but that Washington Islander series has been, I think, it's been pretty good. I think people expected that with the whole Trotz factor and all that, but like Calgary Dallas has been a lot better than I expected
Mm-hmm.
it to be. I thought that was going to be a slog.
A
So
lot more goals than I
yeah.
anticipated. So
So and Chicago's kind of getting ran over by Vegas, but Crawford's doing his thing. So we're actually getting a lot of exciting games. So I'm pretty stoked. Just as a hockey fan, it's been great, but it's even better for DFS.
yeah, Gus in chat says Tarasenko left the bubble. He missed a couple games, the last couple on back-to-back nights. We're going to be expecting some changes. That's you kind of still have to be vague about it, just because we don't know exactly what some of these coaches in the late games are going to do. We've got a few game time decisions that's going to really spice up the slate, but hopefully you've had success so far. I think for the most part, if you've just gotten the right line combinations, if you've played guys that are playing, you're probably ahead of a lot of the field. So nothing better than a little bit of late swaps and four games all staggered. So we're going to have another 12 hours or so of hockey here. Should be fun. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports is the sponsor of the Awesemo NHL strategy show. Today they've got a $12, they've got a $3, a $7 limited entries. You're not going up against a bunch of the sharks that you're going to see on DraftKings and FanDuel. They've got PGA, a couple no management fee tournaments as well, so make sure you get in those if you're planning on playing some PGA, or even if you're not. MLB, they've still got the 25-cent open for today for the no management fee, as well as a bunch of other bigger contests. And then NBA, which I think, locking in about 40 minutes, so you better get on that if you're looking to play some NBA. Over on Yahoo, they do have CSV Edit, making it easier for you to play multiple lineups, and then you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points when you join using promo code Awesemo. Those YSRPs crucial to helping build your bankroll. And then for free content for today, we actually are offering up the NHL projections for free. So if you guys want to try these out, if you want to load them up into an optimizer, link is in chat. Use those prior to the 3 p.m. Eastern lock. Let's quick look at lineup study yesterday. The winner who took it down only had 6 lineups, so some people had 150 and they couldn't even get there, including myself. This had to just be a straight up cash lineup. So Anthony Aquino took it down with Kadri, O'Reilly, Marchand, Williams, Hall, DeBrusque, Torrey Krug, Dougie Hamilton, and Andre Vasilevsky. So basically no stacked there. I guess Williams and Dougie Hamilton is a 2-man power play 1 stack. Marchand and DeBrusque is not, I wouldn't consider that a stack. They don't play in the same power play or the same even strength line. So sometimes you just hit the nuts with your cash lineup, and that's what happened there. Cliffy needed another Boston 2 goal to have even more success on the slate. I can't even remember. I got 5th in the big tournament, I think 2 or 3 nights in a row. So getting pretty tired of getting 5th. I'd like the top 5s to be top 1s every once in a while. But you see a bunch of 150 maxers up there, B. Kreider, $1 Million Poker. Lots of good players up near the top. Hopefully we can do the same thing again tonight, but maybe even Bink. Let's talk about Flyers and the Montreal Canadiens. 2.7 implied total for the Flyers, 2.4 for Montreal. Carter Hart and Carey Price are going to be your goalies. Looks like a new look, I guess, third line, maybe considered the second line. Kotkaniemi, Max Domi, and Jonathan Drouin for Montreal. And then wouldn't expect a ton of changes for Philadelphia. The last game they played, I believe, was 2 nights ago, and that was the 1-0 shutout. Pretty boring game all the way around. What are you expecting to see from this one?
So I think the first thing that we need to talk about is the line matching. You and I get our line matching from a fellow Dauber writer of mine. His name's Adam Daly Fry. If you want to get in contact with me, you can subscribe to his line matching. It's very helpful for NHL DFS. We use it every day. His line matching tells an interesting story. He has the Suzuki Gallagher Tatar line. Now, remember when Danault was there, they would be lockstep with the opponent's top line. But he has, now that Suzuki's on that top line for Montreal, he has him going up against Hayes, Konechny, and Lawton. And that's a pretty interesting matchup for me because Travis Konechny is a very gifted offensive player, but he's pretty poor defensively. His defensive metrics are not good. And is he playing injured? Has he been playing through an injury? Has he recovered from that injury? We've seen him take some nicks, so we don't even know if he's close to full health. Scott Laughton is on the other wing. And the thing about Scott Laughton is he was a career fourth liner, sometimes third liner, often healthy scratch, sometimes AHL, basically until these playoffs. I mean, he got some run with them in the regular season, but he's really solidified his role here in the playoffs. So maybe he's taken a step forward, but we have years of this guy not being really an impactful NHLer, and all of a sudden he's on the second line for the Flyers in the playoffs. So you have one winger who's not good defensively and another who's, all the evidence shows us was a borderline NHLer, at best at times. And then Kevin Hayes, who's actually a good defensive center in the middle, but, one guy can't carry that line defensively. And the Montreal top line is very good at generating offense. And even Thomas Tatar has kind of looked like he's come around lately. So I do have a fair bit of the Montreal top line here tonight. And by top line, I mean Suzuki, Gallagher, and Tatar. I think it's a great matchup for them going into the Philly second line. Of course, the problem is you don't get perfect power play correlation. Tatar has sometimes spent, time away from them on the power play. I don't think it's really a huge deal for me not having perfect power play correlation. I mean, if you want to, you can just drop Tatar off altogether. The other thing is the Habs don't really have a good power play anyway. Like, you're not rostering these guys because they're the Washington Capitals. You're rostering them because they're relatively cheap and they're excellent at 5-on-5. So I'm going to be going in on the Montreal top line just because of the matchup. The rest of the Flyers roster really isn't playing too well. Like, the top line of Couturier, Giroux, Voracek is, they're doing work. They're well over 50% expected goal share. They're doing what we kind of expect them to do. The rest of the lineup is more or less getting throttled. So for me, if I'm on the Flyers, it's probably going to be the top line, but I don't have much Philly here today. I think I have a couple one-off Konechny. I have some shares on the blue line. I have one or two Provorov. I have some Carter Hart. I do like Carter Hart today. But for me, when I look at my lineups, it's going to be a lot about Montreal one here. Putting in Shea Weber when I can, moving down to guys like Schroeder, Petrie when I need to save salary.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you on Montreal one, especially if they're going to get that matchup against the Hayes line and avoid a lot of time against the Couturier line at the very least. I mean, so they're a little bit popular, nothing crazy where I think you need to avoid them, like Suzuki's mid-teens, Gallagher pushing 20%. But I think that's kind of where they should be based on their price, based on you get two guys on the top power play, and especially based on their matchup. So at first I thought they were a little bit too popular, but looking into it a little bit and hearing what you have to say, I like where I'm getting to on Montreal. They're going to be up there as a top 3 or 4 stack for me, I think, pretty easily, this top line. And I don't really love Philadelphia one, so I'm in agreement with you there. I think we both think Danault is pretty decent, especially in the shutdown role. He's not too bad.
And Lehkonen and Byron too, they're good two-way wingers. Like, Byron's still in the NHL specifically because he's very fast and he's good defensively.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at kind of both teams' third lines. I don't know if you consider the Kotkaniemi line as the third line. But I think I'm going to be over on both of these third lines. It's not going to take a lot to get over on JVR, Grant, and Uwe Kubel. I always pronounce his name wrong. But anyways, I kind of like that as a third line, assuming they go up against Montreal's depth lines. So get into some of the secondary plays here, but not. I don't think I'm going to get to much Philadelphia 1. And there's a couple top lines like that tonight, specifically in the next game that we'll talk about. So I'm really spending in this mid tier and not getting to a ton of teams' top lines outside of Vegas, it looks like, and maybe the Islanders as well. So Philly 3, I'll have some Montreal 3, and then a lot of Montreal 1. That's by far my favorite play in this game. I don't think you need to have, like, there's nothing about the Philadelphia 1 matchup that I think you need to, like, X them off or anything like that. I just think it's kind of a tough matchup. And they're probably going to be a little bit over-owned for what the matchup actually indicates here. What about the blue line? You've got Weber and Petrie, both listed on the top power play. Both have spent some time there this season. $5,800 for Weber, $4,800 for Petrie. And then I rarely get to Provorov at $5,200 when he's priced up like this, since I'm not getting to a ton of Philadelphia 1. I guess I'm probably not going to get to a lot of Provorov. Sandheim is a little bit interesting at 4K. So blue liners, and then Corsi asks Montreal 1 ice time. Are you concerned at all?
Yeah, I am, and I think that's kind of tied into Gallagher's health, but that's also something that we kind of expect from the Habs. Like, if you look at their ice time allocation over the last couple of years, like Gallagher and Danault and them, they don't play 20 minutes a game. Right. They don't often play 18 minutes a game, like Danault might. They're typically in that 17-minute range. So, I'd obviously like them to play more, but it's not super concerning for me, especially at the price. Like, if this line was 18,200 playing those minutes, I'd be a lot more concerned. At 15,200, I don't think it's all that bad. And I agree with you on the Philly third line, Obey Kubel, Grant, and JVR. Adam has the matchup going up against Kotkaniemi, Drouin, and Domi. Now, Kotkaniemi is good, but Drouin and Domi are very poor defensively. It's the exact same situation as the Philly second line with Lawton, Hayes, and Konechny. The center is good defensively. The wingers are not. So I don't have a ton of the Philly third line, especially where you said, like, there aren't really a lot of expensive stacks today. But I do have a couple Grant Kubels mixed in, so I do like that. Yeah. I'm with you. I just have one or two Provorovs. I mostly have Weber and Petrie. If you want to get different, like if you're really worried about Montreal 1 ownership, dropping down to Sherratt, I think is fine. They play Sherratt, Petrie, Weber, not evenly, but those are the three guys that are way ahead in ice time over the rest of the blue line. So for me, it would be, if you want to get a little bit different, you can throw Sherratt in there. Just to, if you're worried about all three players being like 15-20% or something.
Yeah. I think we're good on this game, unless you got any takes on goalie. Price is 7,300, pretty low total against him. Are you worried about his volume at all in this game, or do you think he's going to see 30 shots?
Yeah, I'm in on Price again. It's just, volume is also a concern, but at 7,300, volume becomes less of a concern.
Yep. I would agree there. Let's go to Calgary and Dallas. 2.5 implied total for the Flames, 2.8 for the Stars. Talbot, and I'm assuming they're going to go with Khudobin after they won Sunday in overtime. Are they just going with Khudobin as the
They already said goalie? Bishop's unfit to play.
Oh, Bishop's unfit. Okay.
Yeah. So it's Khudobin starting.
There you go. I think I've got him in the projections. I think I put Anton in there. But anyways, you've got very popular Dallas 1 here. If you look at our ownership projections, up there with Vegas is one of the highest owned stacks, is what we're anticipating. They've got the big three back together. The rest of their lineup maybe doesn't matter. But if you like the fancies, Dallas 2 has also been pretty good. I see you nodding your head there, so I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to hear your take. There looks like it's going to be a lot of ownership on the Dallas side. And And then the one major piece of news that you're going to need to pay attention to is whether or not Kachuk plays. Their numbers with and their Backlund's numbers with and without him are quite the contrast. So he kind of makes that second line go with Kachuk, Backlund, and Mangiapane. That's a really nice line. If they're going to have Reeder in there, not so much. So what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I like I like the Dallas top line tonight, but you look at their ownership, it's 1, 2, 3. The Dallas top line, like that sucks. And I think you're gonna have to try to get a little bit creative, like leaving Jamie Benn off and putting Pavelski in for a power play stack or something like that, or adding a third guy who's completely unrelated to the stack, like Hintz or Gurianov or something. Because I do like this Dallas matchup. Because you're right about Kachuk and Backlund. Like, if you look, I looked at Backlund's defensive numbers for the power play article this morning that I wrote at Awesemo DFS, and his numbers, he was above average defensively in 2017-18. He was about average defensively, maybe a little under in 2018-19. He was below average defensively this year. Like, it's been a steady decline. And you're right, without Kachuk, the defensive impact just isn't there anymore. Like Backlund, Mangiapane, and if it ends up being Reeder again, that's just not a good defensive line. And if that's the matchup Dallas goes into without Kachuk there, like I think they could run all over them again. It's just a great matchup for them. So like I'm in that spot where I have a lot of Dallas one, but I'm really going to be creative with my stacks. Like it won't be just Ben, Radulov, Sagan plus Klingberg or something like that. It'll be like Radulov, Sagan, Pavelski, Klingberg, or just Klingberg with Radulov and Sagan for a 3-man or something like that. Like, I think it's just going to be too popular, and especially where they're not super expensive, right? Like, there's not a lot of 1 or 2% filler stacks that you can go with unless you're feeling comfortable leaving 4K on the table or something like that. So, I would just say get creative with your stacks. You know, if you want, just go with 3-man because you think you have a unique combination elsewhere, that's fine. But I'm going to be throwing in some Pavelski or leaving off Ben or leaving off Radulov or things like that.
Yeah,
or leaving it just flat off leaving Sagan. I mean, we look at yesterday, leaving McKinnon off and putting Kadri in your power play stacks would have worked out pretty well. So you don't always need the first line center. I mean, it's good to have them most of the time, but not always. So I'm just going to get creative with Dallas 1. Calgary 3 is something that we've been using a fair bit, but their numbers without Derek Ryan, like with Sam Bennett there, it's just not quite the same. So I'm not going to 3-man stack them. I wrote about it this morning in Power Plays articles. I'll probably just go more one-off Dylan Dubé or something like that. Same thing on the Dallas side is one-off like Gurianov, one-off Hintz. If you look at the Dallas power play, actually, the Dallas second power play unit's been getting quite a bit of ice time the last couple of games. So, you know, you can full stack Dallas 1. You're right about that Dallas second line. Like, it's looked really good. You know, they're going into that third line matchup. Like I said, with Bennett there, it's not nearly as tough of a matchup. They're spread all across the power play units, which sucks, but I think that's a way to get less ownership in what is still a good in-game matchup. Like, it's still a good matchup to go up against that third line. So I would say get creative with your Dallas 1 stacks. Try to get some Dallas 2 in as a filler. Like, not a lot. I think I have 10%, like 2 out of 20 lineups with Dallas 2. So that's kind of where I stand on this game. On the Calgary side, like, I'm not going to have much. I just think that the top line just hasn't looked good all series. They haven't played well. They really didn't play well all year, so it's not too surprising. With no Kachuk there, I think it's a big loss for this team. He's probably their best forward now, if not very close to Johnny Gaudreau. So, you know, I always feel like when I say stuff like, oh, this team has no chance, or this team's going to get stomped, or this team's going to get squashed, that, you know, they come out flying, and then, you know, Dallas is going to win 6-0, or Calgary's going to win 6-0 or something. But like, I just don't see it with Kachuk gone. There's just too many bad matchups. They're just not playing well. I'm just kind of out on Calgary altogether today.
So are you just assuming that Kachuk's out? I saw he was a game time decision.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Okay. I might go a different route. I might just put Kachuk in. on that second line and run some Calgary 2 here. I mean, so this one's tough because if Kachuk, like if we knew he was in, I would not, like I would feel way more comfortable about fading Dallas 1 or being way below the field. I'm already below the field on them, and it's probably going to end up dropping. First of all, like I get it, perfect power play correlation. They're three big names. They played a bunch together. But they could also switch their lines up if they go down even like 1-0 or 2-0 and the coach doesn't like how they're looking. They've already done it a bunch of times. They got put together mid-game a couple times earlier in the series. So Dallas, like you don't know that they're going to play together every shift. They're all in the top power play, so you can get saved there a little bit or mix in Pavelski like you said. I think I'm much more likely to be over on this Dallas 2 line. They've stuck together for the most part. They've played really well, and they're probably going to get a good matchup against that Calgary 3rd line. Calgary 1, not very interested in them. Going up against the Faxa line, like it is a 4th line technically, but they just really do a good job of slowing down the pace, and Calgary has not looked good against them in either of the away games, quote unquote, that they've played. So I'm just kind of taking a chance and hoping that Kachuk could somehow play in this game. And if he's there, he's going to be low owned because this game locks a couple hours after the slate starts. And maybe people won't have swaps ready. He would be on the top power play. I think he could be a really good low owned guy. I have no clue if he's going to play. And that would also downgrade Dallas 1 for me if they're just going to go right into Kachuk, Backlund, and Mangiapane, which is a very good line. So I'm just hoping that Kachuk can somehow play this game and be 80, 90% or something like that. And hope this one stays under control. But I can't get behind just hammering this Dallas 1 chalk. There's so many things I don't feel good about this team with. So
I mean, Dallas 1 chalk just feels terrible to say. Like it feels bad coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, we've done like this has been 2+ years where they're cheap and they're all on the top power play, and then they're broken up in the middle of the first period. Yeah, I don't think they should be 30% owned, but we're like Seguin is going to be close to that. So do with that what you will. Klingberg, he had a big game last time out. I still don't think you should play him without Dallas 1. He's 5K and kind of relies on assists. I'd rather play Heiskanen for 5,400, but he's getting very pricey. And then I like Gio once again on the Flame side, and I probably won't have much else. Brody, Hannafin, Forbort, Anderson, these guys aren't really doing it for me.
Yeah, well, I'll say Anderson is one guy I have some interest in.
Okay.
Because he's currently leading the Flames defenseman in ice time at 5-on-5 per game, and he's 2nd overall per game behind Giordano. So he's getting quite a bit of ice time, and he's only 32 or 3,300 or something like that. So Anderson's one of the few Calgary players that I'm going to have in some lineups today.
Fair enough. Anyone on the Dallas side? You're still going with some Alexiak?
Yeah, Alexiak falls into that Anderson boat, like where I need a guy in a low 3K. He's one of the guys I'll put in, but I'm not going to be like 25% Jamie Alexiak or something.
No, probably never a good idea to have 25% Alexiak, but he is a minutes eater.
The other day,
he's
man.
Be okay, yeah, he's probably one of the better options that's in the 3K range. So I'm right there with you. All right, let's go to the Capitals and the Islanders. 2.6 implied total for the Caps, 2.7 for the Islanders. Braden Holtby and Varlamov are going to be your goalies. The Islanders are up 3-0 in this series, unless I'm just seeing things. But I thought this would be a closely contested series. Looks like we're going to have the Islanders stick around for another at least 4 games if they can somehow win this series. Both of their top 2 lines have looked pretty good at 5-on-5. Big news for the Caps here is that Backstrom is a game-time decision, but he was out with the concussion, right? So I don't know how that's a game-time decision. It seems like you're either in or you're out. So I'm starting to think that he's just going to play. And I don't know what would happen if he does play here with the line combos. They've done a little bit of everything. The Caps have in this postseason. They've had him with Ovi and Oshie. They've had Backstrom, Oshie, Verana. I don't even know what they're going to do. So what's your read on this one here?
So Backstrom coming back, like, as far as line matchups go, I don't see Backstrom as too different from Lars Eller. Like, if Backstrom slides on that second line with Vrana and Oshie, that really doesn't change a lot for me from an Islanders perspective. Like, defensively, how does the line perform? Like, for me, Eller and Backstrom are interchangeable. The only thing that changes for me is if he goes to the top line to play with Ovechkin, or, obviously he's going to go to the top power play unit. He's going to boot someone off, like probably Tom Wilson.
Yep.
So that's what changes for me. The matchup going into, against that Washington second line, that doesn't change anything for me. So you're right about the Islanders top six. They've just been running roughshod over the Caps. And a big reason for that is because they use, they're like Dallas in that they use their depth to take the tough matchups, right? Like, that Zizekas line will see a lot of Tom Wilson and Alex Ovechkin. So that frees up to go up against the second and third lines from Washington. Now, the way the line matching should work out is that the Islanders' top line of Barzal, Eberle, and Lee will go up against the third line of Washington. Now, if Lars Eller is there, I don't really love that matchup. But if it's going to be Travis Boyd again or whomever, like, i.e. Nick Backstrom doesn't play, then I love that matchup going into the third pair and the third line and the depth lines against Washington. So, I have a lot of Islanders top line right now, and I feel good about it. But if Backstrom plays, then I won't feel good about it, because then they're going to go into that Larry Eller matchup, and I don't really like that. So, I'm kind of on the fence right now about what to do with my Islanders. I think I'm going to leave them in, and I'm going to wait to see who's in the lineup for Washington, and if I need to, I'll swap off them to some late Vegas or something like that. Just because I think the matchup, if Backstrom comes back, the matchup you want to attack, assuming the lines would stay together, is Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, and Wilson. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't want to attack Vrana, Oshie, and Backstrom. You wouldn't want to attack Hagelin and Eller. So where I want to go is going to depend a lot on whether or not Backstrom's back in the lineup. So for right now, I'll say I have quite a bit of the Islanders top line. I do like them, assuming Backstrom is out. If he's back, that changes the equation. On the Washington side of things, one off Ovechkin, I'm never going to say no, but I'm more focused on the second line. I have Eller in there right now. If Backstrom comes back, then we'll deal with that when that happens. But whether it's Eller, whether it's Backstrom, that second line is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Oshie is probably one of the more underrated two-way players. Jacob Vrana is probably the most underrated offensive player in the league. Even though he's been kind of in the doghouse, I wrote this morning in my Power Plays article that he got back up over 15 minutes in their last game. So hopefully he's starting to work his way out of it. So that's kind of where I stand here. Is I'm on the Islanders 1, pending whether or not Backstrom comes back. I have some Washington 2 with Eller in there right now. Again, that's pending Backstrom coming back. On the blue line, Devin Taves is really starting to get expensive for me. He's at 4,400, and he falls into that Eric Gustafson kind of range for me, where I'm not playing him unless it's with the power play unit. Like, I would not play him by himself. He's just not a guy that's going to rack up a ton of ice time and peripherals. So for Taves, if you want to put him in with the power play stack, that's fine. I wouldn't use him as a solo. On the other side, I'll probably go back to the Brendan Dillon well. He's playing second pair with penalty kill minutes. That means shot blocking galore. A few nights ago, he put up 9 in one night. Not going to say he's going to do that again, but he's definitely a threat for the shot block bonus. So Brendan Dillon's a cheap defenseman I like here. Braden Holtby's looked good in these playoffs, I think, especially considering how poorly his team's played. But I just don't know if we can rely on using him again. Like, the Islanders are just generating way too many quality chances. They can see 25. Hope he can see 25 shots today and 7 or 8 of them be high danger, and that's just an absurd rate. Like, so I'm kind of out on Holtby. I do like Varlamov's price, even if he doesn't face a huge shot volume. So that's kind of where I am. I'm on Islanders top line, pending Backstrom. Washington second line, pending Backstrom. Brendan Dillon as a super cheap defenseman. I probably won't have much for defenseman from the Islanders side other than what I put in with my power play stacks.
Yeah. I think I'm in agreement with basically everything. The Backstrom news is going to be crucial. He's another one where I might just put him in on that second line and then swap down to Eller if I need to, because I like the second line regardless, whether it's Eller or Backstrom there. But at least leave your options open by playing the more expensive guy. I'm assuming that's what they do with the lines anyways. He just replaces Eller. Eller slides down to the third line. But they could mix it up. I mean, they're down in this series. They need to make something happen here. I guess the most important part for me for this game is I don't really like the top line for the Caps. They're getting popular. Like, Ovi's popular. I guess you can play him whenever you want. Just for the power play alone. It's 8,600. You're not getting a big discount on Kuznetsov and Wilson either. Wilson might be kicked off that top power play. He will be if Backstrom's back. So you're not even getting full power play correlation, and the matchup isn't great. Kind of like with that Faxa line, whether it's the third or fourth line or the first line for the Islanders. Well, the first line just generates so many chances, and then the depth lines do a good job of slowing the pace down. And Kuznetsov, Ovi, and Wilson aren't even that good at 5-on-5.
No, they're terrible.
So I'm pretty much all Islanders in terms of full stacks. I feel pretty good about them keeping their lines together unless something crazy happens in the beginning of the game if they get down early. But they don't usually switch up their lines too often mid-game. And I like whoever the second line is for the Capitals here. In terms of defensemen, with you on Tays. I prefer Pulock, but I'm still not getting to a lot of him. What do you have for the power play? The power play assignments here. Like, do you have Barzal, Lee, and Eberle together with Pulock, and then Tays, or do you have them flip Tays with New York 1?
Yeah, I have the top line with Leddy and Pulock. So Eberle, Barzal, Lee with Leddy and Pulock, and then the second line plus Derek Brassard and Devin Taves. Devin Taves he's the one man. They're running 4F1D on the second unit.
Okay, cool. So same thing we have here, but they kind of give both units some run. But yeah, I just hate the lines. I hate the top line for the Caps. I got to, let's see. I don't even know if I got to any of them before I crunched here. I got to one lineup out of 150 at their ownership percentages. So if they're going to be mid-teens, like the third or fourth most popular line, I'll just take more Montreal 1. I'd rather have Philly 1 over Caps 1 here as a full stack. If you wanted to go full power play and just hope that the Islanders take a couple penalties and you could get rewarded that way, I would rather do that and just say, all right, the Caps are going to put up 4 or 5 goals here, and you hope that 2 of them are on the power play. I guess that's fine because it's unique, but I think just stacking up Washington 1 a lot here is not the play for me. I think the Islanders are going to sweep them, which is crazy to say.
Like, the Islanders are a good team, man. Like, I'll be the first to admit, like, last year I think it was a fluke, Trotz's first year. This team's really come together. That top line is very good. That second line is very good. They went and got Brassard and Pajot, who, sure, they're not great players, but they're certainly good enough to play on a third line. The defense might be a little thin, but I think, Ryan Pulock was near the top of the leaderboard in WAR this year among defensemen. Adam Pelech, I think, is very underrated. Nick Leddy's looked good when he's not anchored with Johnny Boychuk. So, This is a good team. I think this is going to be a tough out for anybody that gets them. And like they're not even the boring Islanders anymore. Like I actually enjoy watching their games. They remind me they're not quite the Islanders of 3 or 4 years ago where it was like, 140 shot
Yeah.
attempts per 60 minutes or something like that. But they're still a lot better than they have been the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I like it. Did not expect them to win the first three here, but I the Caps just look overmatched when you look at the fancy stats here. So maybe Holtby can stand on his head like he did for an entire playoff run a few years ago, but
He's going to need to.
not looking very likely. Main event of the night, back in their rightful spot. We've got the Chicago Blackhawks and the Vegas Golden Knights. The last game of the night, 2.4 implied total for the Hawks, 3.3 for the Golden Knights. Crawford and maybe it's going to be Robin Lehner. I suppose it could be Fleury. We're showing Fleury on the screen right now, but I would think they're going to go back to Lehner. What are we doing here? Vegas says they're going to make changes.
Yeah, that's the problem. There was the beat writer sent out a tweet this morning from their coach. Their coach said that there's going to be lineup changes tonight, and they're not going to tell us what they are, which means we're going to get, we don't know what the Vegas line is, and we're not get lineup is, and we're not going to get it for 9 hours. So this is a problem because this is obviously a great spot for Vegas. And if they get Stasny back, that changes. It could push Carlson from the Stone line to the Smith line, or from the Smith line back to the Stone line, or they could just leave him where he is, and try to recapture that magic a few years ago, and then put Stasny back with Stone and Pacioretty, or they could switch things up, or they could move Stasny down to the third line, which they did at times during the regular season. Like this is a nightmare in the making. I have quite a bit of Vegas. What I did, we should at least talk about the lines that we can talk about right now.
Sure.
This morning I wrote up Nicholas Roy in my Power Plays article as a one-off, 2,900 on DraftKings. That third line with Tuck and whomever else, sometimes it's Nick Cousins, they've been rotating other guys in. It's just been, I can't describe the level of throttling that's going on here. It's just been one throttle after another. It's like watching a Homer and Bart marathon Simpsons run on YouTube or something like that. It's not even, I couldn't believe it. I had to go look at multiple sources to make sure that there wasn't a mistake at the website. That third line's been generating 106 shot attempts per 60 minutes so far this series. That's I wrote in the article, that would have been fourth among power plays this year. It's just not, it's an NHL team versus an AHL line. I think AHLers might put up a better fight depending on who they are. It's just embarrassing for that Chicago third line. Now, of course, I say this, and the Brinkat's going to probably have a hat trick or something like that. But it's not even close. So I have not a lot, a fair bit of Roy and Tuck in some of my more expensive stacks. I have them in a Vegas onslaught. I have them in, I think, one of my two Washington power play stacks. They're one of my favorite filler stacks. We used them yesterday. Tampa 3 did well for us with Gord and Coleman and Goodrow. So this is kind of in that same vein. It's a filler stack that should be pretty low owned in a good matchup, and they're just killing them. So I do like that Vegas third line as a filler. Now, as far as what to do with the first and second lines, you and I were talking about this before the show. The easiest thing to do is probably just to mess around with your defenseman, because if Stevenson is moved down and Stasny goes on that line with Stone and Pacioretty, then all of a sudden you have to find an extra 1,100 or 1,200 or whatever it is. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm going to have a Vegas defenseman in every single one of my lineups, and it's either going to be Theodore or Schmidt, because that way I can either move from Theodore down to Schmidt if I need to save salary. If I need to save a ton of salary, I can go from Theodore all the way down to McNabb or something like that. If I have to move up from Stevenson to Carlson, I'm going to need $3,000. So moving down from Theodore to McNabb is one way to do that. So the way I'm handling Vegas tonight is any line stack that I have them, I'm going to have either Theodore or Schmidt in the lineup. And then I'm just going to proceed from there, because I think that should allow me enough flexibility to kind of round out my lineups. Another thing you can do is just Josh stack them. And then you can figure out the lines that you want after that. Josh stack or game stack, one or the other. And then you can kind of have free reign with what you want to do in that last game. So those would be my 2 bits of advice, is either have one of the 2 most expensive Vegas defensemen in the lineup, and then you can swap down if you have to. Or just game stack / Josh stack, and then you can have a lot more roster spots and a lot more freedom, because if there are big roster changes, and that's another thing, like we talked about, this could be like Will Carrier coming out for Thomas Nosek or something like that. This could be something minor, or somebody coming in for Zach Whitecloud on the blue line or whatever. It could be minor. DeBurr is known for that, as was pointed out to me this morning. But if it is major, it could be one of those late swaps that can bank a GPP.
Yep.
Just because if Paul Stastny comes back with 10 minutes to spare, we saw it the other night. Max Pacioretty came back and he was 4% owned. So you're going to be able to get a low owned combination if Stastny's back in the lineup tonight. So that's my bit of advice. I'll make sure you have one of Schmidt or Theodore in your Vegas stacks.
Yep. Pretty much going to do the same thing without even making any rules in Fantasy Cruncher. I did notice that third line, I think they had 23-2 shot attempts in their game. Their last
They're at
game.
like 74% expected goal share or something like that. It's beyond insane.
Vegas, I mean, maybe not with DeBoer now, but they seem like a pretty sharp organization. Like, they put up 50 shots last game. I don't think they're gonna go full blender here.
No.
I think what they're saying is that Stastny just might be it, and he sounds like a game time decision, even though they haven't come out and said that. That could obviously swap around the centers. They've gone with Stastny, Pacioretty, Stone. They've gone Carlson, Pacioretty, Stone, and then they flip-flop those 2. They've had Stastny on the third line. So a little bit tricky what you do here with Vegas. I think actually the safest thing to do is to just Josh stack them. Play 4 to 5 forwards, 1 to 2 defensemen. Because I think Vegas is going to win this series, whether it's this game or somehow Crawford stands on his head again and they get another one. They still haven't really hammered them in one game, and so I've kind of been waiting on that.
Like Colorado yesterday?
Yeah, we're just the better team is just going to smoke you one game, and then it's what you do with the rest of them that matters. But Blackhawks are overmatched. I think if I'm going to a Blackhawks line, it's that Taves, Saad, Kubalik line, and then if you throw in Crawford, that might be a spot where I swap to, Hail Mary swap to if I know I'm beat, or I'm chasing, or I've got a lineup in contention and everyone around me has Vegas. You could go to Chicago 1 plus Crawford, and that might be a late swap that could end up winning you a tournament. So other than that, in this game, Theodore looks awesome, as does Schmidt. Martinez. All right, there we go. Been talking all morning. Just was doing the baseball show. But anyways, all these guys look amazing for Vegas. The top 3 lines. And it doesn't really matter how you change the centers around, because the pricing is so different between Stastny, Stevenson, and Carlson and Nick Roy. So just be ready to swap if you're planning on playing a ton of Vegas. They're going to be my highest exposed team. I'll take them at lower ownership than Dallas, or even at the same ownership, or even more ownership than Dallas won. And talking about the top 2 lines, but yeah, definitely mixing in this third line as well. One thing I wanted to ask you is how many teams do you think Alex Tuck is a top line winger on? Is it 10? Is it 20? I don't know. He looks amazing every time I watch him.
Yeah, I'd say probably 10, because I'm thinking of all the teams that missed the playoffs. He'd be on the top line for Detroit. He'd be on the top line for Ottawa. He'd be on the top line for San Jose. I'd like at least 10. Well, I shouldn't say at least. I'll say at least 5, probably 10.
Yeah, so that's their third line guy, and he just I mean, every time he's on the ice, it feels like he's getting a good chance. Yeah, Blackhawks. They got one game. I think we're going to get a gentleman's sweep here, and Vegas is going to put up a big number on Crawford, or at least another 50 shots.
I hope you're right. Yeah, if they don't score 5 goals, I want 50 shots.
Yeah, so probably going to get some shot bonuses here. Kane, Doc, and Kajula, like, you could play Kajula, I suppose, just to be different, but the top line's better. The Tays line's better, I think, by a pretty good margin. So if you wanted to go Chicago PP stack, go Tays, Kubalik, Kane with Keith, and that's their path to victory. A couple power play goals like Washington. Then, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that because they do have a good power play. But, yeah, just all over everything on Vegas. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that. Pacioretty's my highest owned player. Theodore, Stone, and actually Stevenson right now are all in the top 6 owned guys for me. So, yeah, just give me everything. Everything Vegas Golden Knights. Anything else in this game you want to talk about, or anything else on the slate?
No, that's probably it. Well, just want to run through the goalies.
Sure.
Price and Hudobin the most, I think. Price, Hudobin, and Hart, and probably going to throw in some Crawford.
Okay.
I don't know where you're going to go, but those are probably the 4 I'm going to focus on.
No, that's pretty much where I'm at. Again, I like to correlate goalies, so I usually get every guy at least a couple times. Guys I'm gravitating towards, and I don't like playing goalies against Washington, but I'm playing a decent amount of Varlamov. And then I have Cam Talbot. I think he's going to see a bunch of shots, especially if Tkachuk is in the game. Tkachuk can't play. Probably going to see decent volume. The cheap guys like Crawford. If you have he's another late swap example where he's got higher upside than Leonard or Fleury in this matchup, I think.
Here, let me ask you a question aside from goalies. Back to that Calgary-Dallas game.
Yeah.
Let's say Tkachuk is back in for Calgary too. Would you have any problem swapping all your Dallas 1 to Calgary 1?
I would definitely swap some of it. I think, yeah, whether it's half.
Because they're almost the same price. Calgary's a little cheaper, so you can make that swap.
Yeah, easily you can make that swap. I think that's basically a coin flip there. So I would, if I had 10 Dallas lineups, I would probably swap 3 to 6 of them to Calgary, regardless of what happens in the first game, because you're just going to get such a low-owned player, number one, in Tkachuk, because he's not on the lineup sites right now. He's maybe the best DFS player for Calgary just in general. Huge part of their top power play. He makes it way tougher for Dallas 1 as well if he's in the game, even if he's 80% of his normal self. And then he makes the Calgary 2 line much better. So like he does a ton for me if he can somehow play this game. You're just going to get a low-owned combo, and a combo that wouldn't be low-owned if we knew he was going to play here.
Yeah.
So.
And my thinking is if you want to get if Tkachuk is in and they get that tougher matchup, it's probably worth it to go with the way lower owned Calgary 1 line.
Absolutely. All right. I think that's going to cover it. Shout out to Yahoo Data Fantasy Sports for sponsoring the show. Go get in there. Guaranteed. No management fee tournaments. Got a bunch of guaranteed contests for MLB, golf, if you're playing this week. NHL, they've got some different price points, $12, $7, $3. They've got some head-to-heads. If you want to go up against someone, you're not going to get a lot of pros in these contests. They're a little bit smaller, but they're really good for building your bankroll, especially the no management fee tournaments. If you want to join Yahoo, you can use our promo code Awesemo to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Again, NHL projections are free today. I will drop this link in chat if you want to use these only for today. If you're not a premium member, you can do so. Even if you want to take a look and hand build and try to get to an optimal lineup, those would be very useful. And we will see you back tomorrow, probably back to our normal time. I would think 11:30 Eastern, because I'm not on the baseball show tomorrow. So good luck, everybody, and I'll see you at the top of the leaderboard.
Or in 5th place.
5th place. That's exactly right. That's my sweet spot. 5th place. I will see you guys at 5th place. Hopefully, 4 of you watching this finish 1 through 4. Good luck, everybody.
Sorry.